Hello everyone. Welcome to the StockInvest.us weekly stock and crypto podcast. The podcast is hosted by StockInvest.us co-founder and Golden Star Signal inventor, Jim Stromberg, who has been actively trading since 1996. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit like and notification bell so you will be first to know when we post a new video. This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and other audio sources. Ensure you listen to the entire podcast so you don't miss out on some key tips needed for this week's strategy.
Week 17 is here, and what a week it will be. It will be full of fundamental news. All week there will be heavy Q results coming from Microsoft, Amazon, Philips, Chevron, to mention some. And in addition to this, there will be price consumer expenditure numbers, which will tell us more about the inflation that is raging. Last week I told you I thought that nasdaq would end at 12,850, and I was very close. What will this week be? Will it be yet another fall for the markets, or will we finally have an upturn? As usual, I will try to tell you more what I think and give you an estimate. In addition to this, I can already mention that the trading tips, well, one of them was closed. Gran Terrio was closed with 19.8% profit, but the others were in loss. This and much more is coming up. As usual, we have to listen at the disclaimer, and then we'll go to the markets.
Welcome to StockInvest.us podcast. We remind you that trading involves a high risk of losing money, and that you should speak with a financial advisor before buying or selling any securities. You should not base your investment decision upon StockInvest.us. By using the information provided, you agree and are held liable for your own investment decisions.
Sadly, I was right about the markets last week. It became yet another red week. Nasdaq fell to 12,839 points, and my target was 12,850, so I was very close, only 11 points off. That made a fall for Nasdaq at 3.83%, and it's the fourth week in a row that Nasdaq is falling. And Nasdaq been falling more than Dow Jones. Last week Dow Jones fell 1.86%, ending the week at 33,811. And now we are in a situation where Nasdaq is below 13,000 and Dow Jones is below 34,000. We know that usually when they break down through a support level, in this case a round number level, psychologic number, they usually start trading in the new interval, meaning that we can expect Dow Jones, for instance, to trade between 33 and 34,000 for some time. And the big question is, and as I mentioned in several podcasts, will Nasdaq stay above 12,500? This is very important because that is last bottom for Nasdaq, and we need to see a bottom higher than the previous if we are to get out of this negative spiral. I will try to answer that question. We will look at the charts shortly. But this will be a week of much fundamental information, and these things will affect the markets. And it's especially a lot of Q result numbers. And as I've been telling you for many podcasts now, I think that now you will start to see companies have to report into their Q results about the future, about the sanctions, the cost of the sanctions, the cost of the war, the cost of the inflation. And these will be seen in the guiding. I think that most Q results might be very good, and most will deliver green numbers, being profitable, less than 21, because 21 was a very good year. But for the more advanced investor, he will look into the guiding. What are the companies saying about the future? And here they have to mention things that will affect their future Q results. And I'm pretty sure that now we will start to see a lot of these mentioning in the guiding. And you can take Cola, for instance, which are under tremendous pressure for their operations in Russia. They have Q results on Monday, today, before markets open. And on Tuesday we will follow up with GE and UPS before markets. You will have GM, Microsoft and Google after market. And Microsoft and Google will tell us something about Nasdaq. I believe these numbers will be quite okay. But with falling markets, with less liquidity, with inflation, we also know that advertising spendings is far less and it's getting less by the month. And these affect companies, especially like Google, very much. And on Wednesday, you will have old Facebook, the new Meta, delivering numbers. And I think that you should especially watch the Meta numbers, which will come after exchange close on Wednesday, because I think we might see a new Netflix when these numbers arrive. And there is more numbers on Wednesday. We will have Ford and Qualcomm. For Ford and General Motors, I think that you will just see in the guiding that they will mention delivery problems, because logistic is really an issue. We know that there is more containers stacking up in China, and there is still a huge disruption in the logistic chain, and this affects everything. Thursday there will be two numbers which you really should pay attention to. It's the GDP numbers and it's price consumer expenditure numbers. Especially the price consumer expenditure numbers will tell you much about the inflation and where it is. In my opinion, these numbers will be high. It might be they are done some tricks trying to keep them low, because we know this is a really bad thing for markets. But anyone shopping now or driving cars, fueling the cars or whatever they do, paying the electric bills, already notice how much the inflation is taking a toll right now. And I think it was last week I read that for instance in Britain the high inflation is already showing in the shopping pattern, and we will see the same thing across all of Europe and of course United States. After market close there will be numbers from Amazon Q results. On Friday is an interesting day for us who invest into oil stocks and been doing that since the oil stocks were very low. That was one very obvious buy, because on Friday there will be Exxon numbers, Chevron numbers, and Phillips will release their results before markets open, and I expect all of them to be very good. So these are fundamental things that I think in minor or major degree will affect the market during the week. I think personally, I think that especially the Meta numbers will be very interesting on Friday, and Thursday is a huge day. The underlying thing is, as I said, look into the guiding. What are the companies saying about the future Q results? Because in my opinion, and as I said before, and I like to try to keep you ahead of things, the future will consist of worsening Q results. They will start to decrease, and you will see increase in unemployment numbers. Unemployment numbers, I think we'll see now, any day now, might be this week or next week, we'll start to see the first sign of increase in unemployment numbers after being on a very good roll for a very long time, because at some place people have to cut their cost. And I think that it will start with restaurants, industry, etc. They will start to lay off people as the demand for the goods will be less, and it will continue. Other fundamental things to keep an eye on is oil fell $10 last week to 97. Despite a huge release of emergency oil, the oil price is still very high. It was up at 120-ish and is currently at 97, but 97 is still extreme high. And I will keep my prediction that oil will continue upwards. And if you are a long-term listener, you know that already more than I think 1.5 years ago I told you oil should go above $100. And it did. That was also the time when I advised you to buy oil share for whatever you could. Gold, a little bit disappointing last week. It was on a very good roll, then started to fall. Currently trading at $1,921. Is down $67 or 3.5% last week. But I believe gold is just having a temporary break. It should continue upwards, and I will keep the target for $2,500 during the next 12 months. And then the last number, of course, that everyone keeps an eye on is the 10-year Treasury yield. Currently it's continuing up. It is just below 3 at 2.9%. And that will be one lesson that I've given you before, because I told you we are heading into red markets. It will be hard to trade, but there are places where you can make money on. One of these things are bonds, and as treasury yield go up, the bonds increases. So there is options in a very volatile negative market. So these are the fundamental things, and we are trying to go into what can affect the markets. So from the fundamental point of view, I think that, okay, there will be a lot of results, there will be some guidings. These guidings are more for the professional investors, which will start to restructure their positions. There is nothing special in neither oil, gold, or 10-year treasury. So there is only the Thursday numbers which could, in my opinion, push the market down, but there is already a lot of expectations for high inflations. So from the fundamental point of view, and we keep Ukraine out of the picture, because Ukraine can any day turn the markets. It just has to be the right news. So peace agreement, and we will be on a strong upturn, and it could be the opposite if things start to escalate more. So from a fundamental point of view, there is really no big things. From a technical point of view, trying to summarize, what will the end result of the week be? Well, at StockInvest, we analyze more than 38,000 tickers. We give them a buy, hold, and sell score. And based on this, we can say that right now there is only 20% buy signals across the world. Very low is the lowest I have seen for very, very long time. Going to nasdaq, we can see that nasdaq only have 10% buy signals. New York Stock Exchange 13%, and London 26%, and Shenzhen China only 5% buy signals. So what does this indicate? Well, I will repeat what I said last week. When things are this low, it is usually a very good buying opportunity. But at the same time, you can have the situation where things go really, really bad very, very fast. It's the same thing when the markets are in the other options. You'll have that same situation. Things can go very fast up or very fast down. So we are at a place where things might turn upwards. I said that last week. I didn't think it was last week. I thought it could be this week. But we will let the chart determine the final evaluation for the week. And to do that, we go to StockInvest.us and we just type in the ticker Exigam, and we will have nasdaq chart. And I recommend you to always look at charts. That gives you a better idea of how things will be. And if you look at the chart, you will see something which I said many weeks now. We are getting very close to that bottom of 12,500, which is very important to stay above. Right now we are at the support which I mentioned last week, around 12,800. If it's broken, we should see a fall very quickly down to 12,500. Sell signals from the short-term moving average, long-term moving average, and there is even that cross from the relation between these two averages. The final conclusion for this week is, I think we will start very negative. I think it's a fair chance that we will bounce up somewhere around 12,600, bounce back to 13,000, maybe as high as 13,200. And I think actually I will be positive for the week, with the expectation that we will see a fall. Then going back up, struggle with 12,800, that will turn to resistance. Then it will break that one and move upwards to 13,200, ending the week somewhere, in my opinion, just around 13,000, 13,100 above. So for a week as such, it became a long market section this week, but for a week as such, I think it's a fair chance that we will end the week in green. But before that, it will be a very volatile week with huge falls. Intraday, I said we can have Nasdaq as low as 12,500, but it should bounce up from that level. So I'll stick to that. I will make the prediction that for the week as such, we will have a green week at Nasdaq, and it will end up just about 13,000 points, somewhere around 13,100 points. That brings us to some of the major companies. We'll do a very quick analysis before I will tell you about the trading tips for the week. And last week I closed one deal very profitable, but had to take a loss in a few others. In this small section, I will just give you a few technical analysis of some of the major companies. We'll do Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, and then end with Bitcoin and Dogecoin. And the reason why we'll do this is because they will somewhat reflect the markets. Whatever we see in these companies, you usually can expect from the market as well. Last week I told you I thought Apple would end at $160. Apple ending at 161.79, so I was very close to the target. And what is it for Apple this week? Well, we will do the same thing. We'll look at the chart. You can do this going to StockInvest.us, type in the ticker Apple, and you will see the chart and see the same thing as I see. And if you're looking at the chart, you will see a black star, and I got the user asking a question, what does the black star mean? So I'll try shortly to tell this. Moving averages are made in long and short moving averages, and they are one of the best technical tools that you have trying to indicate where a stock will go. Right now, Apple has a sell signal both from the short-term moving average and the long-term moving average. These are above the price. When the two lines crosses each other, if the short crosses the long up, meaning that the short is above the long, you will have a general buy signal, and the opposite, if you have the short crossing the long term down, you will have a general sell signal. At StockInvest.us you also have something called golden star. It's a special signal that I made. It's a little bit more complicated than the cross is built on the same principle, but it's just more advanced, and it turned out to be more reliable. It's a very seldom signal, and this black is just a death star, meaning that you have a very strong sell signal in general from these two. Doesn't have to happen, but that is the death star. So that black star is a strong sell signal. But before we will conclude with that, we will look at other things, and one of the things that I really love to look at is the support. The support is shown in the chart as gray bars. It's the accumulated volume. And right now we have Apple just above 160. We can see some gray bars, and this is support levels. If it's broken down, the next one will be around 155 and later at 150. So we have a situation where there is some support below, and there is lots and lots of resistance above. Relative strength index is 32. We are getting close to a situation where Apple will be oversold, and every time Apple been oversold, we saw this back in February and in March. Apple fell down to 26 on the relative strength index. It broke up afterward, and especially back in March, early March, when it was around 152, it went all the way up to $178. We had this situation before, and the most likely reaction will be up. And I think that is exactly what will happen. I think that Apple will continue downwards. Will it turn around 160? I'm not sure. I have a feeling that it might be all the way down to 155. Then it starts to push up. The problem will be that it faces lots and lots of resistance, because once it breaks the support at 160, this turns then to resistance. So 160 will be the resistance level up. Later 165 and 170. Volume is following the stock somewhat okay. And for the week of this week as such, I think, as I mentioned, I think that the stock may fall at least down to 155, then bounce up, have problems around 160, could break it back up and push somewhere around 165, but I don't think it will end much higher than it already is. Last week's target was 160 for Apple, and I think I will hold that target also for this week, so it will be $160 for Apple. And we will not dwell there. We'll just go to Microsoft and see if Microsoft do the same. Microsoft represent all these tech companies. And last week I told you I believed that Microsoft would end at 278, and the Microsoft ending at 274.03 was almost $4 below my target. Fell a little bit harder. We are in the same situation. Only difference is that Microsoft is actually oversold on the relative strength index, and usually it bounces up. We saw the same thing here in the end of February and the beginning of March, being oversold, bouncing up, and I think we are at the same place, but with no real support below today's level. We can have a huge fall in the beginning, and when it goes up it will face a lot of resistance, starting at 175, then 280, 275, 280, 285 and 290. I think that all the resistance above will be too hard. Sell signals from the short-term moving average, long-term moving average, the relation between these two averages, and there is really no very good signals in Microsoft now, other than you can expect a short-term reaction up. How far up it will go will be very hard. It has to be determined by how far it will fall before it turns and bounces up. My guess is that by the end of the week, I actually think that Microsoft will be able to push a little higher than it is today and be somewhere around $280. So that will be the conclusion for this week, and it will actually be up $2 since last week. And I also like to keep an eye on Tesla because it represents a different segments, and it's a very interesting stock as well, and I've done many successful trades in Tesla for those who follow. Last week I said I thought Tesla would end at 1,050, and Tesla did worse than that, ending at $1,005. Right now balancing around 1,000. The volume increased by the end of the week. I don't know if that's a sell-off, but above today's level there is resistance at 1,050, 1,100 and 1,150. On the downside, the stock finds support at 940, later 900, and anywhere between 800 and 900 is relatively good support. Being oversold, reacting up from oversold is usually a good sign, and I think that Tesla during the week actually will hold quite okay. I think that you can be prepared for a worst case scenario where Tesla fall all the way to 880, and they will struggle. For sure it should fall down to 930.40. Any of these levels might just be a good buying opportunity. Buy signal, short-term moving average, long-term moving average, and in general Tesla is in a slight rising trend. And as long as it managed to keep, I would say, above 850, everything looks good for Tesla as is. But for the week as such, it should be a little struggle. My very best guess is that Tesla will end the week somewhere close where it is today. So I'll keep a target for $1,000 for Tesla for the week. And that concludes the three stocks before we quickly look at Bitcoin, Dogecoin. So what do we see? We see a situation where there is no real good support below today's level. There are some support, but most of them are oversold. And as I'll just repeat what I said in the market section. When things are oversold, they can fall very fast, very hard. It's the same thing when things are overbought. They can go even higher, even faster. So this is the scenario. We will have most likely high volatility, but intraday you can have huge falls, then just bounce up by the end of the day. In general, I think the levels are so low. I might be wrong about the week, but I have this feeling that in general the week will be green, not very much, but overall most of the stocks should have a fall, then bounce back up to the levels just above today's level for most of these stocks. And then there is Bitcoin and Dogecoin before we will do the trading tips for the week. And I've been wrong about Bitcoin for some days now, because I said I thought it will push upwards again, but it's still struggling down at the level. And as I said, any upturn will not be very fast because of the huge amount of resistance above. Currently trading around $39,000. It has to turn up from this level, because if it breaks down, that will be a very negative signal. Sell signals on the short-term moving average, long-term moving average. And that very nice upturn it was when it was up to 47,000, indicating that it should break up to 50. Didn't happen. It topped out at the top of the trend. Now it is in the bottom of the trend, and as I said, we just have to keep it above this, because then everything should be keeping that same pace of an upward stick for Bitcoin. But as is, there is a fair chance that it may continue down, and you should keep a good eye on the 38,000 level. Any upturn will not be very fast. Has to be some extremely special things to push Bitcoin very fast upwards. My very best guess is that it should struggle somewhere, moving sideways, maybe slightly up, and I will reduce my target for Bitcoin and say that by the end of the week it will be at $42,000. And we are still waiting. Last time I got in Bitcoin was at 30,000, because that was an obvious buy. We are so far good on that trade. But I think Bitcoin will go higher. But in the chart right now, it indicates that it has to be above 38. Otherwise, things can change for the worse. And we will just quickly look through Dogecoin as well. Simply because Dogecoin represents so many of these small coins. And I know there is a lot of you trading these smaller coins. And if you look at the chart, if you look at this podcast on YouTube, you will see there is a sell signal on the short-term moving average and the long-term moving average, but it's getting oversold, meaning that it will turn up. And then I will just rewind 3-4 podcasts back where I said that it has to turn about 11. That will be good. After hitting up at 17, it falls back, which is natural. Now you just need to keep it above 11 cents, because then it will indicate that long-term negative trend is broken up, and I think that will happen, especially since it's as oversold that it is. But it may fall further down. Should easy go to 12, could also be 11, and before it turns up. For a week as such, I think that it will end somewhere close where it is today, and I will keep a target for 14 cents. That was the analysis and the market. It's really nothing very, very special. Since these things really matter for your trading, I will just end that section before we go to the trading tips, and you will hear how I made almost 20% on Grand Area and lost on a few others. But we will end the market section on that note that now we are at the very lower part, and remember, things can go very, very fast down. How can you utilize this by trading? Well, you heard me over podcast saying that I'm reducing my exposure. I don't go full in when things are very negative. In my opinion, we are getting close to a very short-term bottom, not long-term, but short-term bottom. And usually this is a place where you can take some chances, but you have to expect that it can go both ways. But it's, in my opinion, much better scenario now than it was just 2-3 weeks ago. We are where most likely markets are about to turn for short term. Might only be a week, may only be 2, but that upturn will be very huge. Which stocks should you buy? Well, I will try to tell you in the trading tips, of course, what I will do. But in general, it's a good situation like this. Have some cash on hand. When markets really fall hard, go in and buy some of the dips, because if I'm right, that will have huge volatility. Like for instance today, markets can start red, fall very fast in the beginning, then just bounce up by the end of the day. You have to take some chances, but you do not want to risk all your capital, so it will be your high risk part of the portfolio where you go in, buy the dip in expectations to make some profit on a short term swing up. Which stocks? So hard to say, because there will be many, and there are many opportunities as is. But I will give you the trading tips for this week now. And finally, it is the trading tips. And before I reveal this week candidates, we have to rewind a little bit because there are some open positions. And one is already more than 2 weeks ago in week 14. We bought Allscript MDRX at 22.60, currently at 21.65, so it's down 4.2%. And the same week we bought Equitrans ETRN at 8.48. It's currently trading at 8.1 or down 4.48. And just go, it will be now 3 podcasts back and you will hear these trading tips. And I think markets will be very red forward, but that these two stocks should hold good, and if market turns they will be profitable. So they were bought on the expectation just to hold in a very negative market, and being down less than the markets they actually have, but they are getting close to being sold if markets or the stocks continue downwards. But these two trades, they are still open: Allscript MDRX and Equitrans, and you can look at the chart yourself. But in general, I think that they were a good buy in week 14 and they are a good buy this week. So these are still two open trades. And last week I told you that I did not buy any shares because there were open position and I just wanted to keep them. That was Nvidia, that was Gran Terrio, and that was Sumerica. And last week Gran Terrio was in profit and it continued this week. Gran Terrio went up, I think it was all the way to 192. It was bought at 150. I had a trailing stop loss, a little huge one. So when it started to fall, it was cut by, I think it was 7% stop loss, but still at $8.81, giving me a profit of 19.87%. And that was the only profit, because if we look at Nvidia just continued downwards, was cut by stop loss at 209. It was bought at 217 in the expectation that Nvidia should bounce up, but just continued down and ending at 209. The stop loss was triggered and I had to take a loss at 3.97%. And that is exactly the lesson that I wanted to teach you once again. And I just bring up, you heard me on the keyboard, I was just bringing up the Nvidia chart, because now it's really oversold and the relative strength index is 19. It's super low. Last time it was this low, it was back in January, it was 17, and it went very nicely up. Every time it's been oversold like this, it goes up, but it faces a lot of resistance, and now the resistance is at 210, 220, 230. So for the risky trader, I think that there is an opportunity in Nvidia. You just have to get the timing correct. But the lesson I wanted to teach you was that this is the reason why we use stop loss. And as I said in all podcasts, what at StockInvest we try to do is increase your gains, reduce your losses, and using stop loss is one of them. And that worked for Nvidia. I had to take a loss, 3.91, but as I just said, I made a profit of 19.87 in Gran Terrio. And then there were Sumerica, which I bought at 30 cents, 30.5 cents, in the expectation that Sumerica would do like it has done several times, bounce up. I said it was a high risk trade. It didn't do. It continued downwards, and it was cut by a huge stop loss at 28 cents, giving me 8.2% loss. And this is the first time in weeks and weeks where we had to take some losses, because it's been green all over more or less since I started. But now we have a few losses. We had Nvidia this week with 3.9% loss, and Sumerica bought 8.2% loss. Luckily, Gran Ontario was up almost 20%, so week over week the portfolio was still okay, but not very well. So what is it this week then we can do? Is there any trades? And I will reveal the tips now. But before I do that, I'll just remind you, I think it will be a volatile week. There will be huge opportunities. These are not necessarily the best stocks. And even I give you these trading tips. I look constantly at stocks, how they behave. I have a huge range of stocks I follow, and I closely monitor them to see if there are some very good opportunities, because there will be way better stocks like this. I just try to give you some ideas. And the first idea is a ticker called MIME. Mimecast Limited, and looking at the chart, and that will explain what I think. It is breaking up from a rectangle formation. Relative strength index is high, but some good support where it is today and just below, and very little to non-resistance above. I think it's an interesting stock to get into. So not sure I expect too much gains. I expect the formations to be broken, that I could do anything from 3 to, let's see, 5 to 6% on a good upturn. So I'm not chasing the huge gains, but I think Mimecast is up to something. We usually see this when huge formations are broken, they start to move, and they can move very fast. Also at the golden cross back a few weeks back ago at $79.3. So this is one stock that I'm looking to get into. I hope maybe to get in somewhere around, let's say it takes a beating on the opening, that I can get in around $79.7 or something, and hope that will be the good trade. And the other one is BBBY, Bed Bath and Beyond. And looking at the chart, it's bouncing up from being oversold. This is the relative strength index shown at the bottom of the chart. It's bouncing up. I like this. The green color indicates that it's oversold, and that it usually should bounce up. And what I'm looking to do is see if we can get Bed and Beyond up to at least $20, maybe $21 before it turns down, and that could give a 10% profit. The volume is following the stock. I like this. And I will try to do a trade, and hopefully I will be lucky. I have a okay feeling. We will see. Just get in somewhere nice today at a nice price, and see if we can continue. And I have one third tip, and that is Sures. I'm not sure if it's the correct stock. I just saw it and I like what I saw. Is Syros Pharmaceuticals, and low volume makes huge risk. What I like the most is that very huge volume at the very end of the trading period. It's a penny stock. It's maybe being pushed by something, has some to very good support below where it is today. It will be a very risky trade. But I think that this one could give 10-15%, maybe even more. It's especially that volume which I'm hunting, and getting in at a very good price. Let's say we have a red opening and I can get a very good buying price. I think it's a fair chance to make money. Relative strength index found a pivot bottom at 36 and is moving up by signals from short-term moving average, long-term moving average. So this will be a gamble. It's not the most best stock I see. So I'm sitting now at 5 open positions, and that just reflects the overall thing that I'm saying. I think that we are close to a short-term bottom. I'm willing to increase my exposure a little bit, because nobody really knows exact where the bottom is. Is it on Tuesday? Is it 2 weeks ahead? You have to be a specialist. I've been very right about the markets week after week, where it's going. I have a feeling that it will be a green week this week. Maybe not the greenest, but at least we might see the bottom this week. And I think, as I said, that we will end somewhere just above today's level, overall having a green end by the week. And if I'm lucky, I'm picking these stocks now at the bottom. We will see. The answer you will get in 1 week. I will tell you as usually how things went. Until next week, have a beautiful week. I hope you will enjoy good weather as well and have some successful trades. Bye.